Okay, Pat, can you state the office that you're running for?
Yes, sir. My name is Pat Gallagher, and I am running for the 342nd Judicial District Court that was recently vacated by Judge Wade Birdwell when he went up to the Court of Appeals, so it's an open seat.
And why are you running for this office?
I am running for this office because I have been licensed for 33 years, and I've been doing this type of civil trial law for 31 years. And it's very, very important that we have good, experienced, honest trial judges with a lot of integrity. I've kind of developed a list because I've had over 200 jury trials. And so I've seen firsthand, both through that and by virtue of the fact that my wife was a court coordinator for a court just like this for 20 years, for Judge Tom Lowe, I have seen firsthand how good judges can affect the system in a positive way. And unfortunately, there are a few, I won't call them bad judges, but inexperienced judges who may be in over their head on a certain type of case, and that negatively affects our system. If the jurors or the parties or the witnesses in a case think that a judge is not being fair or is in over his or her head, it has a negative effect on the whole system. And by the same token, if the judges, if the people perceive that, and I want to take particular care of the non-lawyers in the system, the parties, the witnesses, and the jurors are very, very important. So I've seen how good judges can help protect the integrity of the system. But the taxpayers pay a lot of money for our court system, and they deserve to have a good, efficient court system with knowledgeable and fair judges.
Can you briefly describe your qualifications?
Yes, sir. For 2 years, I was an assistant district attorney in Dallas County, Texas, where I was fortunate to have 78 jury trials as a misdemeanor prosecutor and a felony prosecutor. I've had 11 felony trials as a prosecutor. I brought my exhibits here today, which I won't show you, but some of my papers that I just thought relate to the pertinent experience include cases such as the one where I prosecuted a DWI school bus driver with school children on the bus. I love that job. I love being in public service. I love going home and having that feeling that our city and our county and our society was better off because of the person that we put in jail that day. And I've always had that yearning to get back to public service. Since 1986, I've handled the exact type of cases that this court handles. This is a civil district court, so our civil county courts only handle cases up to 200,000, but the civil district court has unlimited jurisdiction. So the very serious wrongful death, products liability, dangerous products cases, medical malpractice cases, important contract cases involving millions of dollars, those are the kind of cases that this court handles. And frankly, I'm the only one in the race that has the experience to handle those types of cases. I think I mentioned I've had over 200 jury trials. I've had over 650 cases in the 10 civil district courts of Tarrant County. And I think I can say, without it sounding too self-promoting, that I've had a successful career doing that. I have never been sued for malpractice. I have never had a grievance filed against me with the Bar Disciplinary Commission. And so most of those cases, I would say all of those cases have been successfully resolved. And my docket has been pretty evenly split 50-50 between plaintiffs and defendants. When I started, I was working for a firm that did primarily insurance defense, and I'm old enough to practice when we had old law comp. So we would go to trial almost every week in the old law workers' comp cases. And I got very lucky in 1986. I handled a little $500 settlement for a company called Albertsons on a slip and fall out of Wichita Falls. And they decided to hire me to cover all of North Texas, from Lufkin to DFW to Wichita Falls. And I got a very nice letter a few years later from the director of corporate liability at Albertsons that said that out of the 100 law firms that they were using at that time across the country, I tried more cases for Albertsons Inc. than any lawyer in the country and had gotten complete defense verdicts on all of them except for, as he said, 2 small cases which were tried only on damages. So I have been in the courtroom a lot. I have handled cases at a high level. One of the Albertsons cases that we tried in Dallas wound up being the North Texas verdict of the week because the damages were sought were for $30 million. The lawyer on the other side was also a doctor, and the case involved the kidney transplant that they were saying was caused by an accident at the store, and the pleas were for $30 million, and they entrusted me to try that case to a jury trial, and we had a successful result. Another Albertsons case that I tried for them, the pleas were for $900 million, and we were able to successfully defend that case. That was one of the cases that made the paper. So I've done this type of case for a long time, and I'd like to think at a pretty high level. My firm that I was with, Fillmore, Herrick and Harrington, was very well regarded. Mr. Fillmore handled Lone Star gas explosion cases for NSearch, and we've defended Harris Hospital and had success at very high levels of litigation.
Okay. And can you tell me what you believe the proper role of government is?
As little as possible while still doing their job, and I say that especially with respect to the courts. My political philosophy, I will show you one thing I did bring. I have here this is on VHF, you'll probably recognize, but this is a speech by Antonin Scalia that he gave in the Eldon Mahon Lecture Series in 2010 at the Bass Hall. I was so impressed by his speech that I bought 6 of these and sent them to my nieces and nephews who were studying government in high school and college at the time. I think government should do a few things and do it well. I think government should build roads and maintain a court system and maintain our national defense at the federal level. And I think, especially at the federal level, the government needs to do what the Constitution says that it's supposed to do. One of the other things I have here is my application that I've applied for appointment to a district court, and the governor's application said, name a federal case or a U.S. case that you think was wrongly decided, and I quoted Wickard versus Filburn, which I read in law school, and it has bugged me ever since that the United States Supreme Court, at the height of the 1930s, Commerce Clause means we can get into all the people's business if we say it affects the U.S. economy. Absolute rubbish, in my opinion. That case said that an Ohio farmer who grew his own wheat to feed to his own animals on his own farm, all within Ohio, that the federal government could come in and regulate that because it affected interstate commerce. And that, to me, is ridiculous. I think the government should do the few things they're supposed to do and do them well. You might know Judge Ken Curry, who retired from the 153rd District Court, and he said something that's always stuck with me. He said, I became a Republican in college because the appeal of the Republican Party to me at that time was they really stood for 2 things. They said, number 1, take care of my money, and number 2, stay out of my business. And I think that's a good philosophy. Mike Pence and I overlapped for, I believe, a year in law school. And as he puts it, he says, I'm a Christian first, a conservative second, and a Republican third. And that kind of encapsulates my philosophy too.
Okay. And when and for what reason should state or local government be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
Very, very limited. I think that should never be done. And again, I'm speaking because I'm running as a judicial candidate. So if the legislature passes a law, I'm going to follow that law. If there's stare decisis, prior cases that say that we decide a certain case a certain way, that the appellate courts, the Supreme Court says I'm going to follow that law. So I'm answering this more in terms of my personal opinion. But I don't think the government should ever seize somebody's private property to give it to another private individual for profit. I think that's flat out wrong. I think obviously we have to build roads that are straight, and we can't divert around somebody's individual house when they won't sell. So that would be a proper use of eminent domain. But I was an assistant district attorney when the forfeitures came in, when they set up the law that said that the police could seize property that is used in or associated with a crime. So they will take people's cars. We filed lawsuits entitled "The State of Texas versus a Briefcase with $34,000 in it." Like a lot of laws, it started off with really good intent, but has been abused a little bit. I know Senator Connie Burton has looked into this issue about whether the government can just come in and seize people's property without due process because they were allegedly used in a drug-related crime. And I have talked to her about that, and I support her efforts to look at that, give that a good hard look, and see if that's being done properly.
That is actually my next question: is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform? So if you want to go in a little bit more of it, that's fine.
Yes, there is reform needed. And don't get me wrong, I am a former prosecutor. I am pro-law enforcement. I have actually prosecuted people. Maybe some of them are still in the Texas Department of Corrections in Huntsville, I hope. So I am, as a former prosecutor, I was a prosecutor intern in law school, and I'm very, very supportive of our law enforcement people. But in some instances, that has been abused, and I think anytime you're going to take property from somebody, there have to be minimum due process standards to make sure that that's not abused, and so that the law enforcement people are not allowed to simply, on their say-so, come in and seize somebody's property. That we have to have safeguards.
Can you tell me what are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
Number 1 is experience. I am the only person in my campaign that has had over 200 jury trials. I think, I frankly don't think that when somebody has not had enough trials to be board certified in one of the types of law